We're back with a special edition of Listen Up, exploring the abuse scandal in the Catholic Church. Our panel includes Robert Barabe, Joanne McGarry, and Father Len Attilia. And Father, I'd like to ask, does celibacy contribute to what has caused this abuse problem in the Church?
I don't believe so. I think the issue is not celibacy, but rather, I believe, immaturity in psychosexual development, distortion of one's position of power, perhaps a self-centered approach or an understanding of the role of priesthood, and a need to satisfy one's personal needs rather than caring for the people that one is sent to minister to. I don't believe that celibacy is what contributes to that, because I think, if that were true, we would not see the extent of sexual abuse that happens among those who are not celibate.
And I do want to make that caveat that the sexual abuse rates in the Catholic Church are the same, and all of the churches are the same, on par with other institutions, and they have not got celibacy rules. What about the issue of homosexuality? Does it engage that on how it affects this issue?
Again, I don't think that's the root cause. I think, again, it is a question of personal immaturity in psychosexual development. And because, again, a lot of what happens in sexual abuse situations involves heterosexual relationships and not exclusively homosexual relationships.
Okay.
So I think it's more a matter of looking at the psychological makeup of the individual.
All right. We have a comment here from our studio audience. Alan, you've had some time to reflect on this issue. What are your views on that?
I think that homosexuality is a factor. It's certainly not the only factor. If we look at the John Jay study of sexual abuse in the United States, approximately 80% of the victims, the survivors of sexual abuse by priests, were male. And so it's a factor.
Joanne, as a person who represents the Catholic in the pew, there seems to be a growing cry that we've got to talk about this. We've got to talk frankly about the rules around the priesthood. Will it happen? Do you think that voice will be part of shaping the future?
Well, I think there's always debate and dialogue about some of the questions that you raise about the makeup of the priesthood and whether we're prepared for change. I think if you were confining yourself strictly to this question, I don't think it would make too much difference to have a married priesthood or a female priesthood. I think in a broader sense, though, it's possible that if the complaints were made to people who had families themselves, perhaps they would have acted faster. But in terms of getting at it as a cause, no. I mean, people abuse children because they're sick and because they're abusing their power. The majority of offenders are married. I think we need to remember that.
The numbers are the same. You're right. Robert, your view on that?
The problem is pedophilia. It's nothing else. The first problem with the Catholic Church is they have to deal with the pedophiles that they have. The second one is abuse of power. It's the bishops who are not reacting. It goes right up to the Pope. The third issue is we're not taking care of the children. The Church should put measures to protect the children of the future and the children now. And the fourth one is we're not taking care of the victims. And there's a fifth one also. There are good priests, there are good clergy, but they need to stand up and protect the children and help the victims and change the Church. And maybe, they won't be obedient to their bishops or their superiors, but they will follow a clear social mission, which is to take care of the children.
And have you still left the Church because of your experience?
I have left the Church, yes.
Yeah. And you're...
Because I'm of the feeling that if a church, if a shepherd protects the wolves and does not protect the lambs, then the Church will remain with wolves and no lambs.
All right, we want to go to our audience here, and let's hear from someone with experience in our studio audience on this. Beverly, thank you for coming today. What do you, as a victim of clergy abuse and an advocate for those victims, want to hear from the Church?
I've been advocating for 20 years that the denomination in which I was abused in a residential school, that they would change their policies and procedures and how they deal with pedophiles and victims. And in that 20 years, I and others have been treated as enemy combatants. And what we would like is to be brought into the management team of the Church who is setting those policies and procedures as full members.
Have you ever been asked to appeal to them?
Yes, we have.
So at that kind of management level?
Absolutely. And we've done it both within the Christian and Missionary Alliance, the denomination I grew up in, as well as a consortium of evangelical missionary organizations. There's about 25 of them. And as an organization, MK Safety Net has heard allegations of abuse from every one of those denominations.
What would you like to be seen as?
We would like to be seen as mutual partners in helping to establish policies and procedures which will protect children today and assist survivors in telling their stories and in finding avenues for healing.
All right, Beverly, thank you very much. Now we're going to go to Bishop Fred Henry, who, when asked about giving the church another chance for that dialogue, here was his response.
Make an act of faith, make an act of trust. The church is not an institution. The church is the body of believers. This is the body of Christ. Is it always pure? No. Sometimes it's sinful, sometimes it's messy, but we always have to remember that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. And I think we're trying pretty hard to be saints.
Robert, you are the advocate for victims of clergy abuse. Does that request to make an act of faith, give the church another chance, work?
That is awful. It is an idiot comment. I can't believe that he said that. He's protecting, again, the abusers, the pedophile priests, and pedophile clergy.
But
what about our life? What about our lives, the survivors? You know, we're going through hell for the rest of our lives, and he does nothing for us. A church is a church.
But
it could be any church.
He's saying just come back in the doors, give us another chance to
come back with the sinners. Is that what he's telling us? He's got a mixed message there.
Okay, Father Lynn, what would you respond to that?
I think it's almost impossible for someone whose faith has been so severely undermined by the breach of trust to step forward and recommit in trust to that organization. But I also think that there's within the church the potential for that to happen if the church were able to humbly present itself in recognition of how it has failed and make amends for how it has failed.
Okay, we're going to continue this discussion when we come back. But first, Archbishop Thomas Collins.
The reality of abuse is rooted deeply in the fact of fallen humanity and in the evil that can infect the human heart.